was it that you got polio? What year was
Oh,
it?
I was about
Just-
4, I think.
Just 4 years
When
old?
I started school at 5, I was still wearing my brace because Mother had to cut my sleeves for my brace to go through.
So you don't even remember a time when you didn't have polio, do you? Yeah. So it's like being born blind
I
or
didn't think
something.
much about it. I
Right.
just had this arm that dangled, but it didn't bother me at all.
Well, it must have, was it
It
not?
drove my parents crazy because they didn't know, no one knew what it was. They took me to Houston,
yeah.
Beaumont, everywhere.
And just your arm never affected anything else,
Never
huh?
affected.
Isn't that
A
strange?
little bit of my back, that shoulder, and the top part of my.
Did
I
it, did
used
it,
to have a big lump here.
did your parents say that it sort of came on right
No,
away,
I
or?
knew exactly. I had temperature, fever.
Oh.
Had, it just like.
Oh, it gives you a
they thought I
fever?
had the flu or something.
Oh, I didn't know
And
how
I
it
remember
affects
Dr.
you.
Dickens coming and seeing me.
Hmm.
And they didn't have antibiotics in those days, but I had, I believe I had a sore throat and I had a high temperature.
How do you,
And
I
then
mean,
what happened?
how do you
my-
get that? Is it contagious or
I
something?
have no idea. As far as
No,
we
it's
knew,
not
nobody in the
contagious.
It's
county
not?
had it.
Well, you must get it from somehow.
It's a, it's a bug, but the
It's a
thing is where
virus,
you
but
get it,
it's
because
not
as far as we knew, there was no one in the county that had it. Of course, I
You
went to
can
Beaumont
search it.
occasionally, and I'd ride the bus down and see my aunt and things like that, so I don't know. But, I remember that, Mother brought when I first knew I couldn't use my arm, Mother brought my lunch. I was sick,
Mm-hmm.
and I had temperature, and we had little pink breakfast room chairs. And she put one of the little chairs up by the bed and put my lunch on it, brought me some soup or something. And I started to pick up the glass, and my glass was there, and my arm just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think too much about it, I guess. And I mean, then it just didn't work at all. And it just hung there. And I'd run around and my arm would swing. It bothered me. The only thing was, I mean, it bothered me because I couldn't control it.
It was in your way or
It was-
something, yeah.
It was in my way. And Mother and Daddy were frantic. They didn't let me know. But you can imagine, they'd never seen or heard. They took me to
Right.
all these doctors. And the dumb doctors in Beaumont, x-rays. We did, I don't know how many, I would be dead from x-ray.
Yeah.
In Houston, nobody knew what I had. And so I had an uncle that was Aunt Chloe's husband, was a Shriner. And they didn't have any children, and I was kind of his pet. And he just kept fretting over it and fretting over it. And he said, I have found out that we have a Shriner Hospital for crippled children in Shreveport, Louisiana. Well, to us, that was, it was 250 or 300 miles away over dirt roads in those days. And bad weather, rain, you'd get stuck. We had a sort of mini accident once. He was taking me in his car, probably Daddy and me for one of my treatments, and we had a little accident. The car rolled over,
Good heavens, a little accident.
Yeah,
That's
rolled over in the ditch.
just a little accident. No
We had
one,
to be
only 3
pulled
people
out
killed.
by mules or whatever. And, but anyway, so it's really kind of an interesting story. So nobody knew what I had. So when we got there, I had pretty panties and perfect little slip and everything. And the first day we got to the hospital, and she had scrubbed me good at the hotel. And when we got out to the Shriner Hospital, they said, now take her clothes off and give her a bath. Her mother just had a fit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then they put a little diaper thing on me, and the doctors came in and stood all back by a whole bunch of doctors, and they had me walk up and down, and they immediately said she has infantile paralysis, and my parents said, what is that?
Yeah.
Nobody had much heard of it.
Oh, and that's what they called
That was
polio?
back just when the woman discovered polio practically. It must have been about 20, I was about 4 and I was born in 23. I figured 27 or 28. And so they put this brace on me, and to
So-
hold my arm like that.
Well, wait a minute, so you said they called it infantile paralysis, so it
Yeah.
mostly only affected children, is that what it didn't affect
No,
adults?
No,
Oh,
not necessarily.
oh,
It's
why'd they
something
call
where
it
I was.
infantile paralysis then?
That was just the word for it. People call it polio most of the time now.
So what if you were an adult, you could get infantile paralysis? Oh, okay. Sounds like something for children.
So they put this brace on me, and it went over my head. It was just wire, real heavy wire, and they wrapped it with cloth, the whole thing. And they put that wire over my head and it braced here, and my arm was like this.
Good
And
night.
of course, I went to school and I slept. My grandmother made me a little quilt to put around it at night, because when I slept, it was up in the air.
Good
It was
grief,
cold.
agony.
And so finally, we went over, we had to go to try, my dad, they wanted me to stay there. And we went all over the clinic and looked at it. My parents said, we're not leaving this 45-year-old here. So my dad said, I don't care how many times I have to bring her, but we want her to go. We want to keep her at home. I'll do everything you tell me to do, and I'll bring her anytime you say. So they put this brace on me, and one time we were there, my dad said, you know, that brace just rubs her. I had to wear straps everywhere, because every time I moved, this would move. It rubbed my sides, you know. So he said, why don't you put it on this side, and it made more sense. The brace was different. So they said, come back here and show us. And Daddy went to the back and designed that brace. We kept it for a long, long time. Just for me, it was my side. But it did it. Held my arm the same way, but it fit on this side, and I had to wear less straps.
Yeah.
And Mother had to wash all those straps. We'd have to unwrap all of that cloth off of those wires and wash them all the time.
Good grief, what a
Yeah,
hassle.
and my hands would get, that would get dirty. Of course, I'd drive Mother crazy. And
So you wore that thing to school, trying to how'd you carry your books and do all that
kids
stuff?
don't think about those things.
Yeah.
How'd you carry your books and do all that?
The only
One
thing that
hand.
really bothered me was going to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, how'd you do that?
I couldn't get my pants down, and some of them in the wintertime were buttoned, so I had to raise my hand and ask to go, and then have a little girl had to go with me. And I hated that. So one time I waited and waited and waited too long, because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to ask some girl to go with me to unbutton my pants.
Right.
We were real modest in those days. And so anyway, it was terrible. I mean, and during recess.
Didn't you have a good little friend
Oh, I
that
had
could
lots
be?
of good friends.
Well, what I meant was that would be that you wouldn't mind asking.
I got sent to the principal's office in first grade because a boy wrote me a note. Can you believe it, in first grade?
With your arm up like this.
He wrote me a note and passed all, they'd pass these little notes. It's something like, I love you, and then they'd pass the note, and it got to me. I didn't even know.
First grade, huh?
Hardly. And they called us out in the hall. Miss Meredith, she'd been a teacher there for 45 years. She taught everybody first grade. So Miss Meredith called us out in the hall, my word, then we had to go to the principal's office. I'm like 5 years old. I'm scared to death.
My goodness.
No, it's so
Just
bad.
another lawbreaker.
Yeah.
Sinful as could be.
Well, what I was trying to ask was, you didn't answer. What was the oldest car you remember seeing yourself? I mean, like for me, if I was to look, think about what's
I couldn't
old.
tell you the name of it, but it was a kind you had to start.
Yeah, that's
winding
interesting.
up the front. It had shades, plastic things that dropped down for windows.
You don't remember what year it was?
Uh,
What year of car it was?
Mother drove one of the first cars in Woodville. Judge Mooney, her brother-in-law, bought. Mother was younger than Nick and his wife, and she had about 6 kids. And Mother still, I don't think she'd even gotten married yet. But anyway, so Judge Mooney bought this car for the family, and Mother drove it. She knew how to drive it. She was a person, and like a bunch of women would go Houston shopping. Mother was the one always did the driving.
Yeah.
Beaumont.
But what, you don't remember what the car was? What year it might have been? I mean,
What
that's
year Judge Mooney's car, that was back before she married, so back in, she married in, Bub was born in 1919. They'd been married about
1919.
2 or 3 or 4 years before he was born.
So it wasn't a Model T or a Model A or a
Oh,
Model
no,
or
it was
something like that?
older than that.
Oh, okay.